Hello everyone, my name is Simran Sodhi, and today as a part of blockchain at BITS I'll be presenting on the topic e-governance using blockchain. So you might have heard of both of these terms, but let's just dive a little deep into it. So you might remember that earlier on that any government related activity that one had to do, whether it be filing taxes or trading in stocks or buying property, anything had to be done by going at the physical location or going into the office, the government office, and actually doing the task. But now the effort has been made by the governments to automate these public services and facilitate their use by citizens, businesses, and also within the government. So these are like you can file tax returns by just visiting the website, and there's a constant electronic voting also, which is on the rise, and many other processes which you can basically do at the comfort of your homes. So the use case of this, or like why it was created, is pretty I think apparent as it is all time available and accessible from everywhere and easy to use, right? So this is sort of what they wanted to do, and also have a record of it by producing on the site. You have an entire record, and there's not a paper trail. You reduce the number of papers, and you have the website on which you can actually do all these tasks, and it makes it much more easier for the consumer as well as the government for the processing of these services. So that is one thing. Now let's talk about the second aspect of it, which is blockchain. I am sure all of you are very aware of what blockchain is, but just to give you an overview, blockchain originated as a Bitcoin digital currency platform. The name was Bitcoin, and it was basically a digital currency platform which was created by someone under the pseudonym of Satoshi Nakamoto in 2008. So blockchain, as the name suggests, is a chain of blocks, and these blocks contain transactions. So every block is a set of transactions, and apart from the transactions, there is a hash value which is stored in these, which corresponds to the transaction itself. So if there is change in any of the transactions, the hash value also changes, and therefore you are able to get to know if it has been tampered with in any way, right? So another thing that these blocks contain is the hash of the previous block. What this ensures is that if there is any change in the previous block as well, this can be understood in the further block, because the entire block value will change as the previous hash value has changed, and that is included in the block. So the hash of this current block will also change, and that error will propagate, and you will be able to get to know of any tampering that might have occurred. So the features of the blockchain, what it provides, are of transparency. It's a public ledger, so it's available to everyone to view, and therefore it's very transparent and accessible to everyone. Its immutability, which I've already mentioned, by the hash values you'll be able to understand if any change has been made, and therefore you can't actually make any changes in the blockchain once they have been put in it. Another thing is of decentralization. So unlike a central authority such as in the government, blockchains don't really have a central authority. They just are a peer-to-peer network in which the decision of adding a particular transaction into the blockchain or not, or adding a particular block into the blockchain, is done through various consensus mechanisms. I won't be going into the details of those, but it's basically through that the blockchain is formed. One interesting feature that the blockchain also provides is of anonymity. You might think that this is a bit strange, considering that it's a very transparent system, and you have all the transactions visible to everyone. But the point where anonymity comes in is because it does not allow you to know the actual identity of the person. So every person or node is associated with the public key, but that is not actually associated with the identity of the person, and thereby an anonymity is also maintained. So now a question might arise. So we are talking about governance, which is a very central, the government is a very central authority, and blockchain, which is basically decentralized. So how do these two go together? So that's where the concept of blockchain technology and e-governance comes in, right? So it's basically that, it's a technology. If we talk about blockchain, it facilitates agreement among the participants of virtually any matter without the involvement of an intermediary. So there's the foundation for decentralized governance, right? So this, how does this happen? We will see soon. But basically, in the context of an electronic government, it's a technology that stores data on the results of all interactions between citizens and government agencies. So what actually blockchain technology provides is triple entry accounting. So one is obviously the person and whom they are doing the counting with, the government possibly, and the third is the public. The public can see the data, how it is, sort of what money was moved where. They can audit the trail. Everything can be done by the public, and so it includes the concept of triple entry accounting. So now let's actually talk about the motivation of why we would be incorporating this blockchain in the concept of e-governance, right? So like we were talking about the central authority, so the usage of blockchain would actually avoid the use of a central authority for transactions with citizens through the government authorities. So that is one major motivation that is present for including this, right? It's also that this way you can decentralize the collection, storage and processing of data, while also maintaining data integrity and immutability. So for example, think of you have your money which goes, and like imagine taxes, right? So you have the taxes which go to the government, but now you don't know where exactly your money was utilized, right? You might get to know from the budget, but that is based on trust, that you have the trust that you place with the central authority. But if you're able to track that yourself, right, because it's present in the blockchain, where your money exactly went, you will actually be able to, it's a very transparent system which is not based on trust but based on facts. So that is one thing that is really a big motivator of having a blockchain for e-governance, right? It also the cost of transactions can be greatly reduced by eliminating the payment of state duties and intermediary fees through the concept of blockchain. So you might think that is the concept transaction actually that much in the first place? But yes, actually it is. And there is one study. So Estonia claims that apparently 2% of the GDP is saved just by transacting online. So through the blockchain, if they put their transactions, it just makes the cost of transactions greatly reduced, and therefore it has quite a lot of use cases, and therefore a lot of motivation of having transparency and immutability is also a huge factor, because if it's in the power of the government, they can basically change anything and provide it to you, and you wouldn't know. So by having immutability, you ensure that does not happen, right? So another aspect is of that of digital ID. So you might know that refugees or immigrants might come and they don't have any way of showing their citizenships and availing benefits, therefore, right? But through this digital ID concept, you're basically ensuring that you do actually have ways of telling who that person is through the blockchain. So like by accessing the blockchain, if the person is registered on it as soon as they are born, so they'll actually have an identity and they can avail all the benefits that they rightfully should be able to do so, but aren't, because of just poor bookkeeping in the current system. So that is majorly the motivation of why we would want to incorporate it. So let's look at a few applications that are actually present these days, but they're at an experimental level. They have not been completely incorporated currently, but there is still a lot of research going on in this area. So you might know that initially what happened was, when the government was introduced to this idea of blockchain, they thought it was meant for a particular use case, right? That was how they viewed it, that a particular purpose was to be solved using a particular blockchain. So they developed it in that way. So around 2015, 2018, around that time, it was just used for developing a particular purpose, and that's it, right? But what happened in recent times, they have been utilizing it such that they are making it more modular, in the way that these modules that they have developed for a particular purpose, even if it solves like say 2 or 3 purposes right now, or like 2 or 3 things, like for example e-voting and buying land, and maybe 1 or 2 more, it can actually be used for much more, like it can be developed for much more using the basics building blocks that have been developed. So the same, like basically making the entire blockchain process modular. That is what the governments have been doing in the recent times, right? So basically reusable modules for application development. So one of the major applications of blockchain is actually asset tracking. So if you add all your assets, as in if you have a particular asset, when did you purchase it, who did you purchase it from, all of this trail is added on the blockchain. So you can easily be able to track your assets, and you can understand who has how many assets, and like assets being any movable, immovable aspects such as intellectual property, wills, social protection, healthcare data, pension systems, or maybe even land, right? So that is one thing that the blockchain can be used for, in a very, like you can get your net worth and everything through this blockchain. Another thing is land property services. So a few blockchains have actually been developed for this purpose of buying land, and this entire thing being on the blockchain, what it ensures is that if you have sort of ever gone to purchase land, you might know that there are a lot of intermediates in the process. So it's a very cumbersome or tedious process for somebody to buy that land. So they have to go through like XYZ institutions to actually procure that land. What the blockchain does is, all of this happens in the background, and basically it's a very direct communication. So it ensures like interoperability, and this is another sort of use case of blockchain, it making it simpler to solve, simpler to do and solve, right? Another benefit of blockchain is of automating transactions, right? So if you have, for example, say you have registered at the time of birth, like you registered on the blockchain the existence of a person. So now there's an idea of how this person is sort of evolving. So say they reach the age of retirement, so they know that the government knows that now the benefits have to change, right? So the benefits that the person receives, like healthcare and other things, this is what needs to be provided. So all this can be done automatically using the blockchain by the concept of smart contracts. So smart contracts are basically help you to they help you to perform a transaction automatically based on certain conditions. So these conditions can easily be put into the blockchain based on your birth and your life history. If that's on the blockchain, it can basically be automated, and that can reduce the cost and time and save money immensely. So that is another application of the blockchain. As I mentioned, interoperability between departments becomes much better, because you are actually able to reduce the number of steps that you need to do to procure a particular thing, right? And obviously there is a traceability aspect of it. So the entire life cycle of any particular thing, like may it be money, may it be an asset of yours, you can trace it through the blockchain, and that is a huge aspect as well. There's also identity and privacy. So you can put your identity on there, but at the same time, because of you having that exterior identity where it is not linked exactly with you, but just with it as a social number for you on the blockchain, your privacy is still maintained. Like nobody can find out that is who you are, right? They can't link it with you. So that's another thing, that's an application of the blockchain, in the government space. And one particular use case is of a reliable vote counting elections. So electronic voting can actually be a very huge thing through the blockchain, as you can you get a voting number and you vote on the blockchain. You put your vote through the blockchain, and once you've done that, the person verifies that this voting number has just one vote, and like records it, and now this can't be changed. So there is no possibility of coercion, and because of the privacy that you have, you can't be coerced to do any particular vote or like know which vote you have done. So this is actually like a very interesting use case, which has actually been developed in like Estonia, for example, as well. So these are some of the few applications that e-governance has in blockchain. But the concept comes that if the government is making the changes, like if the government is maintaining it, like how is it decentralized, right? Or how is one ensuring that they are not still making any problems if the nodes are just the government who are making the changes? So this is done through a few mechanisms. So basically they can actually use a public blockchain like Ethereum, and have their entire system on that, so that anybody can verify and make sure that there is no problem that is happening. It's also possible that the government has a private blockchain, but it basically basically publishes a screenshot of this private blockchain after some times on the public blockchain. This ensuring that like in that time, if there was any change, like after that it can't be made because the screenshot is on the public blockchain now. So that is another way. And then an interesting way is also of a widely witnessed event. So the government basically publishes the root value on a newspaper or some other public forum after every, say, some amount of times, a day, a month, a week, maybe, right? And because they have published it, so now they can't really change it anyways again, right? So that is a widely witnessed event. So all these ensure that the government basically does not have a very they cannot really change values internally, and it makes it much less corruption prone, right? So that is one thing about e-governance using blockchain. But I would still say that it's a long journey ahead. A lot of these methods and these methods are very new and experimental, and they are being utilized only for a particular aspect of it, while the government is making the effort to make this more modular and make it more more secure and increase its use cases. It's still at a very niche stage where it still needs to be a little bit refined to be able to create it a very large space, but still it's very hopeful because the use cases are many. I mean, think about it, you don't have to worry about, a person does not have to worry about not having their identity. That can just all be digitized, and they can just be ensured that they will get their benefits, and any reward system that the government might have can actually be presented to people who actually deserve it, rather than just problems because of the same name or something, like some reason like that, the actual deserving people not getting what is actually theirs, the deserving people getting what they deserve, right? So all of these things are a far way ahead, but it's hopeful because of the impact that it's creating, and because of the many use cases that it has. People are motivated to work on it, and I think maybe in some way it's just creating this wave of wanting to have a system which is more transparent, corruption free, and just basically which allows you to have more control over your identity rather than it being of somebody else, right? So yeah, that's about it, and I thank you all for your attention, and yeah, thank you for watching the video.